Christianity claims to know not only truths and reality about this natural world, but Christianity also claims to know truth about the supernatural world. How can a Christian claim knowledge about these things? Thank you for watching the Professor's Podcast, where we connect the Bible to life and culture. Today, I would like to continue our look at the Christian worldview, and we're going to examine kind of an unusual subject, I guess. We're going to talk about knowledge. How is it that we know anything? Christian theism, or the Christian worldview that we're talking about, places a premium on knowledge. And Christianity does claim to know certain things. Christianity claims to know not only truths and reality about this natural world, but Christianity also claims to know truth about the supernatural world. That is, to know that God exists and to know that there is an afterlife or an eternity. And this raises the question about how can a Christian say that? How can a Christian claim knowledge about these things? Certainly, there are some misunderstandings or misconceptions about what knowledge actually is, and it would be important for us to address those. First of all, some people would speculate that knowledge is only certain if it is empirical. That is, you can test it, you can prove it, you can maybe put it to the scientific method. But there are certain concepts and ideas that we have as people, human beings, that defy this kind of understanding of knowledge. For example, the concept or the idea of human rights. There is not a scientific method or observable process that you can empirically prove that there is a such thing as human rights. And yet inherently, we know that there are a such thing as human rights. Not every culture applies their understanding of that the exact same way, and that doesn't mean that people always live up to the understanding that other human beings have rights. But it is an innate sense, it is inherent within us as people to know that there is a such thing as human rights. And so therefore, the idea that in order to know something for certain, it has to be empirical or provable by scientific method is somewhat faulty. Another faulty or misconception about knowledge is the postmodern idea that you can't really know anything. Postmodernists would say that you are talking about something, and as you are talking about it, you're using language, and your language is creating this reality. You're talking about something, but what you're talking about is simply just using words to describe what you think and what you claim to know, but there's no reality to those things. And so you can't really know anything. Yet the postmodern concept of knowledge falls short, because at the end of the day, that means that none of us really know anything. And there are shared experiences that we have as human beings. There are verifiable and confirmed common experiences that we can look to say that, yes, we know about this. We know that this happened. We know this is the way that things are. And so postmodernism somewhat falls short. Interestingly, one of the problems in our culture today is the idea that knowledge is largely based on how you feel. In other words, your feelings determine your reality. So if you feel that something is true, therefore you know that it is true. And that also flies in the face of a Christian and really epistemological concept of knowledge. Your feelings don't determine your reality. Just because someone says something and uses words that you hear and are offended by, you feel offended. Well, just because you feel offended by that does not mean that the person intended to be offensive. So you could say, I feel offended, thereby I know the person intended offense, and yet that would be incorrect. This is a major problem in the transgender movement, where people would say that they feel to be a certain gender or different than they are. And so therefore the reality is that they are a different gender. But our feelings don't determine our reality. And that's a misconception of the idea of knowledge. So what then is knowledge, and how can we say as Christians that we know certain realities beyond just nature? Traditionally, historically, the understanding of knowledge to say that you know something or have knowledge of something is justified true belief. That is, you have accepted a proposition, you believe something, that belief is justified, meaning that it is fully supported, well supported by reason and logic, as well as evidence. And then that belief also is true, meaning that it aligns with reality. Take, for example, the idea of the existence of God. A Christian can say that he knows God exists. That is accepting a proposition. And the belief is justified, meaning that it is well supported by logic and reason, as well as evidence. Now, the evidence that is utilized in the discussion of the existence of God is not the same kind of evidence that is utilized when you're talking about testing gravity or scientific method and those kinds of things. Very different, but there's evidence nonetheless. And then it is true. That is, it aligns with reality. Now again, the supernatural cannot be tested and measured by the scientific method, because the scientific method in science can only talk to or speak to what is within the natural realm. And for someone who is a naturalist to say that there is no such thing as the supernatural realm is basically making a religious claim, because they are claiming that something does not exist that they cannot measure. The problem is they can't make that claim. They can't make that statement and expect that it be true. So the Christian can say that their belief in the existence of God is justified because it is well supported by reasoned arguments as well as evidence, but then also that it is true that it aligns with reality. For example, the reality of the existence of God. It is congruous, it is harmonious with mankind's tendency to want to be religious. It is congruous, it is harmonious with mankind's tendency to seek meaning in life, this idea of something that's transcendent or beyond just the mundane that is there. There's also the testimony of Scripture, which could also be included there as evidence. And how many atheists who have given a serious examination to the teachings of Scripture as they were intended and as they were given, and to the historical background to the Bible, have come to the conclusion that the Bible is true and that God does exist. There have been minds and hearts that have been changed by that pursuit. Is it because they all of a sudden threw out logic and reasoning in order to do so? No, that is not the case. That is because there is in the Scriptures a wealth of evidence supporting the existence of God, and that is backed up by true, verifiable history and investigation. Take, for example, the resurrection of Jesus Christ. To believe and to say that you know that Jesus rose from the dead is to accept a proposition. But then that belief is justified, that it is well supported, fully supported by evidence as well as reason and logic, and that it is true. It aligns with reality based on that evidence and based on the support. So a Christian can say that he knows certain things, not because knowledge is based only on the evidence and empirical science. Say that he knows something not because he feels that something is true and therefore it is true, not to say that he knows something because his words and his language are creating this reality. He can say that he knows things because he's accepted a proposition that is fully justified, well supported by evidence and reason, and that it is true. It aligns with reality. So knowledge. The Christian has knowledge. He can know for certain, not just this natural world in which he lives, he can know for certain the supernatural world as well.